Yeah, my mom said, son, this law school is going to be here forever. You need to pursue your dreams. You can always come back to school at any time. My dad was like, son, basketball's not going to last forever. You're already in law school. Let's just finish this thing out. And so I had to think about it, prayed about it, and
hey everybody, my name is Marc Israel. Welcome to Courtside with Marc. Today we're very lucky to have with us Edward Pollard. Edward is a city council member here in the city of Houston, former big-time hoop star, practicing attorney. I feel really privileged and appreciate you coming in today, man.
Marc, I appreciate being here. This setup that you have is amazing, man. I'm impressed.
Dude, we don't mess around. You like the logo?
The logo is top tier.
Well, because I was told you were a big-time high school hoop star.
Well, yeah, you heard right.
Yeah, that's it. So we're going to start right there. So, and by the way, I mean, I just talked about your resume, which is pretty impressive, right? Practicing attorney, a member of the city council here in the fourth largest city in the country, soon to be third largest city in the country. And I think on your resume, it should be your name, your email address, Courtside with Marc, and then all the other BS.
You're right, bro.
Everything else you've done.
That'll open a lot of doors.
And yes, it should. Yeah. And I'm going to tell all these guys who come in. But anyway, thanks for coming in, man. I do want to talk. I want to talk about what you're doing today. I want to talk about the city council. I want to talk about the city of Houston, how the city of Houston runs. But you know, I find that everybody's journey is really the most interesting part. So you're here today, but how the heck did you get here? So let's get back. Let's start and let's talk about hoops as long as you're here, because our mutual buddy John tells me you were a serious hoop star. To start me off, man, you grew up in Houston?
So I grew up here in Houston, Southwest Houston, in the Westbury, Meyerland area. Went to all public schools, went to Lamar High School right down the street here on Westheimer, played basketball there, was all district, all city. Then went off to Morehouse College on a basketball scholarship, played there, was a shooting guard, small forward, played the wing. I was a little bit before my time, let me tell you this. So I was a person who had a really good jump shot. Shot it pretty quickly, and I had a lot of range to my jump shot.
Okay.
But when I was coming up, it was everything about getting it down to the post. Getting it down to the post play, get it down there, then pass out of that. Make sure you have multiple passes, a lot of movement, right? But now it's much more free flow. Right. And everyone's shooting from range. There's much more spacing. So when I watch basketball today, I'm like, I was 10 years too early. And but no, I played basketball at Morehouse. And then
how'd you wind up at Morehouse?
Interesting story. Interesting story.
Speaking of hoops, Spike Lee, Morehouse grad, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So as I was coming up at Lamar High School, I started getting recruited my junior year by a lot of the local schools: Stephen F. Austin, North Texas, Texas Southern, Rice University, Sam Houston, all these mid-majors. And then mid-majors started coming from around the country. But I thought I was better than a mid-major player, right? So I'm thinking, North Carolina, Duke, and all these big-time schools that you see on TV. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm getting recruited by a lot of mid-majors my junior year. My senior year, I should be even better. So let me hold out.
Like
right?
Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, let's go.
So we get to my senior year, and many of the mid-majors are signing their players. I'm not signing with anyone because I'm holding out for the bigger schools. Had a really good senior year, but wasn't good enough to where these big-time schools were offering me a scholarship. Okay. And so, who I was waiting on is Georgia Tech. They're at Atlanta. I have an older brother in Atlanta. Okay. And in the summertime, I would go down to Atlanta and visit my older brother. And he would put me in the Georgia Tech basketball camp while he was I think he was in law school at the time.
Okay.
So during the day while he's at law school, he would put me in the Georgia Tech basketball camp. And I did really well, got MVP of the camp. And I was hoping that Georgia Tech would offer me a scholarship.
All right.
So I'm holding out for Georgia Tech. I'm saying no to everybody else. Well, by April, after the season ends, my senior year of high school, I have no offers anywhere. And I didn't fill out a college application or anything.
And all of the mid-majors were done with it?
They were done.
They had their team.
They said, we like you, we loved you, we wanted you, but we signed our players. We couldn't wait around, right? It wasn't like I was number one in the country or anything. So they signed their players. And so I was hoping for Georgia Tech. That didn't come through. The only other school in Atlanta that gave me a scholarship was Morehouse College, based on my older brother, who went to Morehouse as well, went to the school, went to the coach's office, gave him my tapes. I have a younger brother in Houston. Look at his tape.
Pretty cool.
And they end up giving me a scholarship almost on the spot. But that's how I ended up at Morehouse. It's not a basketball school at all, but it's a school that has some really impressive graduates, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Spike Lee to Samuel L. Jackson, Maynard Jackson. Just for what I do now professionally, Morehouse is the brand that I think I want to be most associated with. And I think everything turned out the way it was supposed to.
Pretty cool.
By end up going there.
When you were there, did you know that you wanted to get into public service? Or you weren't even thinking about
I
it?
wasn't even thinking.
You weren't like a senior class president?
Nothing. I mean, I was basketball, parties, girls. Sometimes you go to class, but no, I was not thinking about that. But I was a political science major.
So you were, okay.
And I was a political science major because I did have an interest in maybe one day being a lawyer. And my older brother was a political science major. And so I just automatically just kind of went that route. But I didn't think about going into politics. But my family has a real long, rich history in service. None of them were politicians, but my grandfather, Reverend T.J. Jemison, was a pastor in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was the organizer of the first bus boycott in the nation. And
in Baton Rouge?
In Baton Rouge. And he got the Baton Rouge bus system to desegregate in like 9 days. So Martin Luther King Jr., who was his friend, heard about that and said, hey, I saw what you just did in Baton Rouge. I want to do the same thing in Montgomery.
It's unbelievable.
So he came down to Baton Rouge. My grandfather kind of gave him a blueprint on kind of what to do, what to expect. How do you do a bus boycott? And then Martin Luther King went back to Alabama to do it in Montgomery, and it lasted over a year. And that was like the big shifting point of the civil rights movement, was that Montgomery bus boycott. And Martin Luther King credits my grandfather for being like his mentor and starting the whole movement. So I come out of a family of service. My mother was an educator and a college professor for 40 years. My father served in the Vietnam War and was a small business owner. So I've been around service and been around community, but I never thought about running for public office. But when I got to law school after doing 2 years of international basketball in Chile and in Singapore. We can get into that.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
All right.
Talk to me about that. So you're at Morehouse.
So we're at Morehouse.
Service is in your blood, but you're also just playing ball and just being a regular college kid having fun.
Yeah.
But you wanted to keep playing ball.
So this is another crazy story. I usually don't get into this, but I'll do it for your podcast. I'm the first guest.
Yeah, the first guest we do is special stuff. And I want you to tell me about your parents when you spoke to them.
So my senior year, I redshirted a year, so I'm at Morehouse playing for 5 years. And by my senior year, I'm thinking, hey, I should be getting all the minutes, all the shots, right? I've been in the program for a long time.
You're the man.
I should be the man, right? But the coach is favoring younger players.
Okay.
In one game, I got a little frustrated. And I let my frustrations get the best of me. And I kicked the chair on the sideline after he took me out of one of the games.
That's like a Bobby Knight move, man.
And I felt like the stadium was really loud until I kicked that chair. And it was like dead silence. It sounded like a gunshot in there.
God.
And he looked over and he said, go to the locker room, take off your uniform.
During the game was still going on.
As the game was going on. So
I didn't know. You don't seem like a malcontent. No, you seem a nice guy.
I know. That's how frustrated I was at what was going on at the time. So end up taking off on uniform, get back to the school, because this was a away game. He was like, I'm dismissing you from the team.
Wow. With this, is it in your senior year?
Senior year.
There.
Senior year of second semester. Oh, God. So I'm like, dude. So anyways, at that point, I kind of was like, it is what it is. I'm ready to get this chapter of my life over with. But a few days later, as I'm kind of just sitting in my apartment, I'm thinking, man, I put so much investment into basketball all these years. I don't want that to be my last game. I don't want that to be the last thing that I do when it comes to basketball. So I didn't know anything about playing overseas. Zero.
Right.
But I was like, maybe I can play internationally and get a shot and get some tape and someone will see me and maybe I can eventually continue to follow my dream to be a professional basketball player in the States. Right. So
how do you even start? And I went,
it's a long journey.
that's of Google. You Google it, like, you know.
So there's a player here, used to be a coach for the Rockets, John Lucas.
Of course.
All right. So John
legendary guy, and our sons have carried on.
Correct.
And
So John Lucas was the #1 draft pick by the Rockets, I believe, back in the 70s, but went on to be a coach for several teams, including the Rockets.
He was also the #1 ranked tennis player, and he was college too. He was the #1 pick of the NBA draft, and he was the #1 ranked college.
University of Maryland.
Man. He was a Terp.
So he has these summer workouts for pro players that are going into the draft here in Houston to work them out and get them ready for their pro workouts with NBA teams. And he hosts them at different gyms here in the summertime. And they're like early morning workouts at like 5 a.m. Ouch. I knew his son, John Lucas III.
Yep. Who also coached.
And also played in the NBA because I was at Lamar when he was at Bel Air High School here. So I go to these early morning workouts. I'm not invited, but he just showed up. He tells me about it and he said, just come in. So I go, and Coach Lucas looks at me, doesn't know who I am, and it's like, dude, sit on the side, right? So for 3-4 days I get there, he just tells me to sit on the side.
He didn't play at all?
Didn't play at all.
Literally just sat there?
I'm just sitting there.
You didn't kick a chair?
Nothing. I'm sitting there trying to humble myself.
Right.
And the 4th or 5th day, Coach Lucas was late for whatever reason. So his son, John, kind of starts picking teams. And he just threw me a bone and said, I got head. He's going to be on my team. So he picks me and I start playing well. And this is against like other, NBA prospects. And so Coach Lucas finally comes in a little later. I'm out there on the court. He's not telling me to get off the court once I'm out there. Too late. And he starts seeing that I'm playing pretty well. So after that day, they allow me to come back and I'm able to continue to play with the NBA prospects.
So cool.
Some of the trainers that were in this workout had relationships with teams overseas.
Okay.
And they saw me there and were able to make some calls, and that's how it started. And I went to Singapore first, and then I went to Chile.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how is Singapore?
Singapore was my first time really traveling internationally as an adult. And I'm like 22 years old, don't know much about anything, but it was extremely modern, very dense, very vertical. The city never slept. So it was just nonstop action, very clean city to where, at least when I was there, if you litter, you spit some gum out, they do the lashings. I saw a person get hit.
Really? Wow.
Right there on the street. Yeah, but it was a crazy experience, a cool experience.
Was the entire league was in Singapore?
Yes.
We travel.
No,
all the teams.
Everybody was in Singapore.
Were there other Americans there?
Yes, there were some other Americans.
So you felt comfortable,
Yeah, you had a few Americans on your team, and so that's kind of who you hung out with. I roomed with the guy who was on my team from New York.
Okay.
But it was a great experience, and kind of broadened my horizons about how big the world is and to appreciate other people, other cultures, other perspectives. Because up until then, it was kind of just confined to the United States, and I thought that we were the end all be all, and that was far from the case. So it definitely helped shape my mindset, and it has played a role in how I think about things now.
Yeah, and now we'll come back to it, but now, right, you're involved in politics in one of the most diverse cities in the country, right? One of the most diverse cities in the world, right? So there's somebody from everywhere here in Houston. Right. So did you go back a second year, or you went to Chile?
So I went to Singapore the first year. Second year, I went to Chile.
You just threw a dart at a map?
No, same kind of trainers that I knew from that workout. I stayed in touch with them, and they had a different offer for me to go to Chile. So I went there. And my goal was to try to get to a better country each season. And many of these countries that we were getting recruited to were countries that were trying to grow the sport. So they weren't known for basketball, didn't have a lot of a lot of infrastructure around leagues at that time, but wanted to grow the sport. And so you try to work your way up, right? And if you can get to bigger countries like Spain or play in Greece or China, then you're into
a step away.
Correct.
Coming back here.
Correct. So I went to Chile, and again, really cool experience. But depending on, in Chile, we did travel from city to city. So one city you could be like in Santiago, very developed, very nice city, and then like 3 days later, you're like feel like you're in a third world country.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was definitely an experience, but again, another place that kind of shaped my perspective.
And treated well? Did the people treat you well there?
Yeah. I mean, they treated us great. I didn't know Spanish.
Right.
And I had a translation book at the time.
Right. And you didn't have Google Translate those days? No.
It wasn't even so when I was there, they didn't even have Wi-Fi at the time. This is back in like 2007 or 8, something like that. So they had like the internet cafes. Remember how you
First I remember
you had to go somewhere to use the internet, send an email, but when you leave there may not be any connection anywhere. So it was difficult kind of being away from home. You're kind of unplugged, unlike now where you could just jump on your phone and still be connected to everybody. At that point in time, it was a lot of isolation.
And you're really just with the guys on the team.
Right.
And so you did that for a year, or you did it? And then what? Did you? And you told me a story about that we took your parents.
Yeah. So
if that's when it happened.
Yeah, that's when it happened. So I took my LSAT the senior year of college, which is the test you take to get into law school.
I'm a lawyer too, man.
So
I've done that.
Yeah. So you take the LSAT, and my LSAT score lasts 3 years. Okay.
That's right.
So I played first year in Singapore, second year I was in Chile. So now I'm in my third year, hoping to get a deal, and no deals coming through. And so as I'm waiting, my high school coach at Lamar tells me, hey, you can come here, coach with me. I'll get you a position as a long-term substitute, and as you figure out things.
Cool.
So I go back to Lamar, coach with him, which I did not enjoy. But I'm telling myself, I'm going to give myself till August.
Right.
If I don't get a offer by August, I'm going to go to law school. So I was preparing to go to law school. My mother worked at Texas Southern, so she pulled some strings to kind of get me into the school.
No, you had good LSATs, man.
My LSAT was not good. Yeah,
at least it hadn't expired.
Yeah, it hadn't expired. So I was like, Mom, just, I'm going to apply. I plan to go in August. If I don't get a deal, that's where I'll go. So August comes around, no deal. And so I end up going to law school, and I enjoy it. I'm there for a couple months, and in October, I get an offer to go to Lithuania. And
you had already started law school.
I had already.
You were like a month in.
I was like 2 months in.
Okay.
Yeah. And I get this offer.
Lithuania has a much bigger program.
Correct.
Much bigger program.
Correct. So now I have to ask myself, what do I do? Do I drop out of law school and take this offer, or do I, just stay put, go to school, knock it out, and become a lawyer? And my mom said, son, this law school is going to be here forever. You need to pursue your dreams. You can always come back to school at any time. You should go to Lithuania. My dad was like, son, basketball is not going to last forever. You're already in law school. Let's just finish this thing out. And so I had to think about it, prayed about it. And I never really liked being in school. So I was thinking about, okay, if I do play ball for the next, let's say, if I'm lucky, 5-7 years at the max, I'll have to go back to a school in my 30s.
Right.
And I said, do I really want to go to school in my 30s?
Right.
And I didn't. So I said, if I know I eventually want to be a lawyer, I eventually will have to go to law school to do that. And I'm already here. I know basketball is not going to last forever. Then I'm going to stay and just continue with law school. And when you play overseas, they make it seem very glamorous from a distance. So they'll send you, where you'll be staying and what you'll be doing and what your view will look like and how the stadium. And then you get there, it's not the case.
It's not that.
And you're signing these contracts that really aren't guaranteed, right? You think you're making a certain amount, or if you get hurt, they're sending you right back. And you can't sue them, or where you don't have any jurisdiction, right? So it's a big risk to go over there and play in the first place. And I was taking that into consideration as well. And so I said, hey, I've had a great time playing basketball, and it's taken me different places and done some amazing things for my life. But now it's time to go to the next chapter, and I focus on becoming a lawyer.
That's so cool. So you're listening to your dad and not to your mom, huh?
In that case, I did.
Now, and do you regret it, or you're at peace with your decision? And
Not at all. I'm very much at peace with my decision for that. Only thing I think about is, and I kind of skipped over this, when I was in high school, when no other schools were recruiting me after my senior year, my mom helped me put together like this package of articles and highlight tapes and everything. We sent it out to all the big schools around the country. And one day I'm in class and I get a message to come down to the main office. I got a phone call. It's like in the middle of the day. I'm like, who's calling me in the middle of the day?
at school?
Yeah. And so I get down there and I answer the phone, and the guy says, "Hey, I'm Rick Barnes from the University of Texas."
Wow.
And he says, "Hey, I got your tape in the mail. We looked at it. We like it. We don't have any positions to offer you a scholarship, but we are open to bringing you in as a walk-on."
Wow.
Right. And so at the time, I was like, well, this is a big program, University of Texas, right?
And Rick Barnes is a great
coach. So I said, okay, this is something to think about. But, my ego was telling everybody, hey, I'm going to get a basketball scholarship.
So just give me a scholarship. What do I got to watch so key for?
So I said, I passed on that to take a scholarship to a much smaller school,
right,
to go to Morehouse. And the ironic thing is, my freshman year at Morehouse, I'm sitting in the dorm and I'm watching the Final Four on TV, and it's UT in the Final Four. And I'm like, damn, I would have been on this team. Even if I was at the end of the bench, I still would have been on the team. So sometimes I think about that, but I also think about all the things that have transpired for me since then, especially politically and professionally. Morehouse is definitely the white call.
Yeah, it's an amazing school. And yeah, we all make decisions as we go through life, right? You can't have regrets, and you make your decisions and they take you one way or another. So you went to law school, you became a lawyer. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do, and then we'll talk about some of the political stuff. So let's start with your lawyer life.
Well, I'll tell you what happened in law school. My second year of law school, I took an internship at the state capitol in Austin, working for a state legislature, Donna Dukes. She was a state representative, and it was a program that allowed you to spend your entire semester working in the legislative session, and you'll get a full semester worth of credits. And so every single day I was in the state capitol, working on bills, working on memos, working on speeches, seeing how everything develops and works in state government. And I caught the political bug. And one night I remember I was up in the House gallery and I was looking from the stands at all the state legislatures on the floor, and they were discussing bills. And I said, man, I don't see a lot of black people down there. I see no young people down there, but they're discussing things that impact my community. And I was in the stands, and as a competitor, as an athlete, I said, I want to be in the game.
There you go.
I don't want to be up here in the stands. I want to be down there with them making the decision. So I told my parents that, once I get out of law school, I'm running for office. And so I came out.
And before that, you really had never thought of that?
Never thought.
So it was really that experience in Austin?
It was that one experience in Austin.
That's really cool.
I caught the political bug. And it's like, as a former athlete, you look at politics once you're in it, and it's fast paced, it's competitive. You have to be in a fast paced environment on the day to day. You have to grind it out, and work at it. And a lot of those tools that make you successful as an athlete, I think also can make you successful in the political world.
Yeah, I think that when you talk to athletes, they talk about all the practice behind the scenes that people don't see, right? We see the 48 minutes of the game, but there's thousands of hours that go on behind the scenes. I know in politics, right, everybody sees the speech or the debate or the big thing, but it's all the little constituent service, all the phone calls from the little lazy lot whose garbage didn't get picked up and stuff, right? So it's really grinding out all that stuff. So so I know you practice law, but so when did you get involved in politics or community service in Houston?
Right when I graduated from law school, which was back in the end of 2012, I immediately just jumped out and started going to as many political meetings as possible.
Like just uninvited, just walking in,
yeah,
right?
they would have civic association meetings, homeowners association meetings, or just, Democratic club meetings and community events and community charitable events. And I'm just going.
So cool.
And I'm meeting people. And when you're young and you want to be involved, they welcome you in, right? So everywhere I went, people were very much receptive to me and started building some relationships. And at the time, I was trying to figure out what seat am I going to run for.
Okay. How old are you? How old are you at the time?
Now
I mean, you're like 24, 25 now, right? Yeah.
At the time, I was like in my late 20s.
Okay.
So
But you knew you wanted to run for something.
for sure, but you have to find a seat, right? So that's the thing about politics. I tell anybody who wants to run for office, you have to identify a seat, because whatever seat that is a certain strategy that it will take to win that seat. Correct. And most seats are dependent on where you live.
And are most, well, you're going to talk about what you decided, but are most positions here in Houston, are they term limited? You also have to figure out who's there, right? Who you're going to run against. Right. And okay, so
most outside of city council, when you get to the county or the state or the federal level, there are no term limits.
Right.
So once you're in office, many times those people are in office for decades.
Right.
So you have to then find a seat that you think you can win. So I'm looking at the map, and I know I want to run for state rep because that's the environment I just came out of.
Right.
And that's kind of what I know. So I said, I'm going to run for state representative. And so I'm looking at the map. I'm like, where can I run? Oh, this person has only been in office for a few years. Probably can't beat them. This person is like 70 some years old. Maybe I could wait this person out.
Right.
But I saw an area of the city that was nearby. I said, man, they have some really low voter turnout over here. It doesn't look like this area is getting a lot of engagement. And it was on the other, I was on one side of 610, it was on the other side of 610.
you have to live in the district.
Correct.
Okay.
So I was married at the time, and I told my wife, I said, hey, we need to move on the other side of 610.
What are you talking about?
That is right, yeah. What are you talking about? So I said, if I want to run for this seat, then we have to go over there. And so we packed up everything eventually once our lease was up, and we went and we moved on the other side of 610 in the more of the kind of Galleria Sharpstown area. And I ran for state rep against an incumbent on the Democratic Party ticket. And quickly,
I mean, did you have to, I'm sorry, you have to raise all your own money? People, I mean,
no, at the time,
out of your pocket? Or
yeah.
What'd you do?
At the time, I was such a newcomer to running for office that I really did not understand everything that went into it. And since I was going against an incumbent, I was a fresh face. No one really outside of family and friends was supporting me. And so we put this, I appreciate it. We put together a pretty good campaign based on, just some, 20-year-olds out there trying to make things happen. But came up short in the Democratic primary. And I remember the day after I lost, it hit me that this is something that I really want to do.
Really? Yeah. Even though it must feel crappy to lose.
It was. I mean, it was a lot of work. When you run for office, you put everything out there. People start talking about you. They start digging into your past. You become scrutinized. But after I lost the next day, I woke up saying, I don't want to let this be it for me politically. This is just the beginning. And so I continued to stay out in that same community, going to the same meetings, developing more relationships. And a few years later, the city council person in that area was getting term limited. And so it's going to be an open seat.
The city council has term limits.
Yes.
Okay.
And so this gentleman was being term limited. I said, okay, this is an open seat. Let's run for it. Now, the interesting thing is I represent like Galleria, Gulfton, Sharpstown, Brayburn, and there are really no predominantly Black neighborhoods over here. And usually to win these seats is kind of based on identity politics, and people from the outside were saying, well, a Black person can't win on this side.
Is there no Black?
Yeah, no, there's no Black neighborhood.
Right.
So, but what they did not know is since I lost that first race several years ago, I stayed around these folks and I kept going to the meetings, kept volunteering, kept showing up.
They knew you.
Yes. So, and I built trust and rapport with them. And although there weren't any black neighborhoods and I didn't have a lot of black voters in the area, we still were able to do well and earn their support.
Amazing.
And I ran a very moderate bipartisan campaign because in the city of Houston, council races are nonpartisan. So there's no primaries, no letter next to your name, no party affiliation. You just have your name on the ballot.
Oh, there's no RD at all next to your name.
Nothing. So I was able to go to both sides, and that's what I did. And my district is pretty purple, and so we knocked on everybody's door 3 times, and we end up winning pretty with a pretty good margin, like a 60-40 margin. So,
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what year was that?
this was back in 2019. They started off with 8 people in the race, and I was the only black person in the race, the youngest person in the race, but we were able to pull it off. And then I ran for re-election in 2023 and was able to win the seat again.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But now you're term limited, right? Now,
Yeah, so I got 2 more years.
so you got 2 more years. Okay. And talk to me about how the city of Houston is governed, right?
Okay.
So I'm aware of the fact that there are some cities that have what they call a very strong mayor, system, some a very weak mayor system. Talk to me about what the mayor does, what city council does. Do the state legislature and the governor get involved in anything that's going on in Houston? So
Yeah.
give me a little one-on-one of how Houston governs itself.
Yeah, so Houston is a strong mayor form of government, which means that the mayor has direct appointments to many critical positions, like all the directors, the fire chief, the police chief, who's the chair of Metro, which is our transit authority, the port, Houston First, which governs our conventions and tourism. All the main appointments come through the governor.
Yeah.
Where council has its power is it can yay or nay whatever the mayor puts forward. So I tell people that you can look at city government as a business, and that business has a board of directors. The board of directors is the city council members, and the mayor is the chair of the board. And so we make the decisions on behalf of the company, which is the city, and the shareholders are the taxpayers who pay taxes. Now, people pay taxes in primarily two ways: through sales taxes and through property taxes. So when I went and bought this shirt, there was some sales tax to it. Some of that sales tax went to the city, and that's what provides money for police and fire, parks, libraries, streets, drainage, water, airports, whatever, all your city functions. And our annual budget is about $7 billion. And so we have to, as council members, decide, where do your tax dollars go? Some people want better streets. Some people want more housing. Some people want more police. Some people want less police. Some people want to focus on green space. Some people want you to focus on flood mitigation, right? So you have to then decide, where do these $7 billion go? And it sounds like a lot of money, but when you're in the 4th largest city in America, it can go very fast. And everybody has their own interests, right? And so then that's where the politics comes in, and who you represent hopefully is carrying your interests, because you want those dollars to go to things that benefit you, so you can get bang for your buck. And so that's how kind of city government works. It's something that affects you each and every day. When your trash is not picked up on time, or you want to make sure you have clean drinking water, or you have speed bumps on your street, or lights, or sidewalks. All of that is city council. And we have to spend money to put forth allocations towards all of those different things.
And how does the relationship work? Are you talking to your constituents and saying, what would you like me to do? Or is it sort of the other way around?
Both.
Or you sitting in city council and you're going back to your people in your district and talking about what you think is important?
Both. I mean, when you knock on people's doors just to get to the office, you're telling them, hey, I want to represent your interests. These are some of the things that I think are important. And they tell you things that they think are important. And it's going to be a lot of the same interests: public safety, infrastructure, fiscal responsibility. And so you'll go to these different meetings and people say, hey, these sidewalks in my neighborhood are crappy, right? Or we need speed bumps, or, my trash isn't getting picked up on time. Whatever the case may be, then you have to take their issues and try to find a way to resolve them. Right. And you have a limited amount of money to do it. And you have 11 other districts that are trying to do the same thing.
All right. How many districts are there? Let's talk to me.
Yeah.
How many? So you have the mayor.
And then you have
currently Whitmire, right? And how many?
So you have 16 council members.
Okay.
You have 11 of us represent districts lettered A through K. So I represent District J.
Shout out Jay.
Yeah. And I call it J City.
J City.
And then we have 5 at-large members that represent the entire city.
Okay.
The district members primarily focus more on constituent services, and the at-large members kind of focus on more broad policy issues. But we all get one vote, and you get 9 votes to pass anything on council.
So if the mayor comes in and says we want to do X, Y, Z, he's got to get 9 votes, or he can't get it done.
Correct.
What about his appointments? If he says I'm appointing so and so the fire chief, and he gets 7 votes, he or she is not fire chief.
Correct. So where the power of council.
So council is pretty powerful.
Still has his leverage for sure.
It's pretty powerful, right? I mean, he needs, in this case, it's he, right? It's with our, right? So he needs 9 allies every time he does it.
Correct.
And how often is council meeting?
So we meet twice a week. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. at City Hall is for public sessions. So anyone can sign up from the public to address the full council. They get 3 minutes to say whatever they want. They can come and say, hey, I think you're an idiot. You're stupid. I can't wait till you leave. And you just have to let them talk. And then Wednesdays at 9 a.m. is when we have our general session, which is when we vote on items.
Okay. And but it's 52 weeks a year?
All year long.
Because I know the state legislature doesn't meet. The state legislature, they want to have limited government. How the state legislature doesn't even meet.
So here in Texas, the state legislature is very different than many states. They are only in session 5 months every 2 years.
Every 2 years. That's right.
Yes. So they are not there on a weekly, daily basis like City Council. City Council is there every single week. I mean, we do have some vacation weeks for holidays, but for the most part, we're there every single week.
Yeah, that's a very Texas thing. That's a very limited government type thing. By the way, it was done intentionally, right? It's intentionally because they felt that if the legislature didn't meet too much, they wouldn't do too many things.
Correct.
So, but really, the city is very different. And when you're talking politics, right? We all live in a very highly polarized world these days. But do you feel that, or is it when you're in city politics, is it really much more about getting the trash picked up and the sidewalks fixed, and so is there polarization?
No, city government forces you to be moderate, which is already kind of my mindset and my ideology as a personality trait. But it forces you to be kind of towards the middle, because regardless if you're Democrat or Republican, you want your trash picked up on time. You want safe neighborhood. You don't want the flood waters coming into your home. That pothole could care less if you're a Democrat or Republican, right? So generally, we agree on a lot of issues because they are community-based. And I wish that's how every level of government was. But the only way that is happening is because we stripped off the party labels and we got away from a primary, and you're just voting for people without the party baggage that comes with both sides. And it allows us to not have to worry about that. Now, everyone up there, of course, affiliates with something. But the issues that we're tackling are not as polarizing as the federal issues like, gun rights or immigration or abortion. We're talking about making sure you have a safe sidewalk to walk on.
The real things that really affect people in their day to day. Talk to me a little bit about what you did in your district with with some of the picking up of the trash and some of the issues of the graffiti, some of the things that I know you've sort of gone above and beyond, or maybe explain to me some of that discretionary funding that you told me about.
Yeah, so City Council has an ability for their district council members to get what's called Council District Service Fund. So every single fiscal year, each district council office gets $1 million for projects. And that's unlike many other political positions. Outside of city council, no other position really gives you just kind of open discretion or a pocket of money to do something with. In Congress, you got to vote on things. State legislature, you have to vote on things. They're not allocating dollars to every single office to say, go do some projects. So what we discovered was $1 million may seem like a lot of money, but when it comes to, getting a new playground equipment or some new lighting or fixing a street, that money goes very fast. So instead of putting the money strictly on projects, we decided to put the money towards personnel. And we have hired all these private dedicated crews to do a lot of the day-to-day maintenance and security that we want to see get done in the city. And so in our district, which we call J City, we have supplemental programs. We have a crew that goes out there and picks up illegal dumping and washes away the graffiti for graffiti abatement, picks up scattered debris. We have another team that's mowing the esplanades, cleaning out ditches. We have what's called a District J Patrol, which is an overtime program for HPD that only does neighborhood-related issues. And our residents can go to districtjpatrol.com on their phone or their tablet, and they just put in the complaint, whatever that is, and it gets routed over to these overtime HPD officers, and they are charged with addressing those neighborhood-related crimes. We have a crew that does home repairs for seniors and veterans, and they do exterior minor repairs for those in need, and they don't have to pay anything for it. So we have all these different programs to supplement the work that the city's already doing. So all these programs, the city already does, but they're not doing it fast and they're not doing it frequently. Right. So you want your esplanade to be mowed all the time, but the city may not have the resources to do it, but every quarter. Well, no, we want it done every month. Right. So knowing that the city is stretched and the city is so wide that it's not going to be able to get to everybody all the time, all these localized supplemental programs that we privately contract out, we have now the discretion to direct these crews to do certain things on a weekly basis that we know will get done much faster.
And doesn't conflict with the sanitation department or anything, right?
Correct.
I mean, it just seems like a brilliant idea. Nobody's copied you on this? Or
a few districts are starting to look at what we're doing and starting to take some of these ideas and implement them in their districts. And, we try to use J City as a model for how we would run the entire city. So if we were able to run the entire city, we would want to have each district have these supplemental programs to where it's much more localized and much more focused on these neighborhood related issues. And we think things could happen much faster, much more prompt if we went that route.
And I assume every district, every neighborhood might have a certain point that's more important to them. And
Right.
I mean, you're in J, you might have one issue that's important to your people, but another neighborhood might be something else. So you'd want more, you'd want everybody to have this discretion.
Yeah, I would want them to be, I would like to allocate dollars to each district to where based on their needs, they can contract out to folks to do it, to help the different city departments, whether that's private trash, whether that's, animal welfare, whatever that is. There are so many either nonprofits or private sector folks, or even folks looking for a job, second chance people who we can allocate those dollars to do some of this work much faster. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to, clean out the gutters, get litter out of the ditches, to mow the vacant lots. And there are people who are at home that are looking for an opportunity that we can provide those employment opportunities to them to not only clean up the neighborhood, but give them purpose as well.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And you try to use people who live in the district, or you try to use people who,
I would prefer to use as many people from the district as possible because they know the lay of the land.
Right.
But yeah, we open it up to people all over the city, and it is a bid process to where, we'll put a bid out for anyone to be able to put their bid in, and whoever has the best proposal is who we go with.
And so just to sort of circle back from where we started, I guess when you were in high school and you were sure that you're going to play at Carolina, you're going to play at Duke, you couldn't have envisioned yourself here. Is that background playing sports? Is the background you had, in Chile and overseas? Has it helped you in what you do today?
Yeah, I'm very competitive, so I don't like to just do things half-assed. I don't like things just to not get taken care of. But I was thinking about my high school coach the other day, and he used to have a phrase that he would tell us all the time, say, just get the job done. I don't want to hear the excuses.
Right.
And many times in government gives excuses, and government is a lot of red tape and bureaucracy, and it's slow. And you call and want to get something done, and they bounce you from department to department with excuse after excuse. And it's just not my personality. And so my background with sports has me look at issues much more differently for constituent services, and we have the mindset that we just need to get the job done. It doesn't matter what the issue is. There has to be a way to solve this, and so that's what we come up with creative solutions to do it.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're doing in J City is doing exactly that, right? It's like it's not about trying to figure out who's right or wrong. Let's just get it done.
Correct.
So now you got to take it to the next level, man. Well,
That's the goal.
okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in, man. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it, and
This was fun.
it is fun, right?
Thanks for watching this week's episode. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.